All right, going live. 5, 4, 3, live.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Environment Subcommittee meeting. Before I forget, at the ENU Committee today, I just said that tomorrow our meeting would be late afternoon. Going to aim for 4:30. So that's after a number of other committees that some of which overlap with ours will be meeting. So you can pencil in 4:30 and we'll confirm tomorrow. So on our agenda this evening are HB 24, HB 990, and HB 1147, those three. So, guess without further ado, Kristen, you want to discuss HB 24? We discussed it last. We said that noted that MDE was going to be providing some updated amendments. So if you and Les, who I think is here, could discuss the new amendments, or
So
how about this?
I'll bring them up
Yeah,
on the screen. That might
yeah.
be
I was going
helpful.
to say maybe just go through the amendments, maybe not just the updated ones.
Um, uh, I have the wrong screen up. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, so bringing it to so the bill with the sponsor amendments is requiring an environmental justice evaluation of certain permit applications when the EJ score for the project area is above the 75th percentile. What's new from last week is the department added additional language regarding the application of the bill. It would apply to a permit application other than a general permit received by the department on or after October 1st, 2024.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on, can I just ask, what does that mean other than a general permit?
So there's individual permits and general permits issued by the department. And
Oh, yeah, I remember. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, I remember. I think we talked about that last week or during the hearing or something. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Another piece of the bill is the amendments that were discussed last week authorized the department to take certain action after doing this additional EJ evaluation. And this language is further fleshed out to require or to authorize the department to take these actions if the department determines that a permit would have a substantial impact on, oh, my screen's blocked, on the health of the surrounding community. And these actions would be for permits that are for a new pollution source or increase in pollution. The department would be authorized to deny the permit or impose conditions in the permit to address environmental justice concerns. And for permit renewals that would not result in an increase in pollution, you can impose, the department is authorized to impose conditions in the renewal to address any environmental justice concerns. But that's now only if the department determines that there'd be substantial impact.
Now,
I'm sorry.
Impact on the health of the surrounding community. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, Delga Tarasic, you have a question?
Well, partially I have a question about how you want us to do this. Do you want us to raise our hands or jump in since we're kind of going through the draft?
Raise your hands, I guess. I can.
Okay, now my hand's raised. Oh, wait, I gotta raise it.
Okay. All right, Delga, Ruth, you had your hand up first, so why don't you go?
Oh, thank you so much. I just wanted to ask who determines what's a substantial impact, or how is that determined? I mean, I don't know that there's an answer to that. It just seems vague.
There is language in the bill that has the department adopting regulations. I'm not sure if that's envisioned to be further fleshed out through regulations or not, but I would defer to MDE, of course, on that one.
Can I
Yeah,
ask
sure, yeah.
Les?
Les, do you want to jump in?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
A little bit louder?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I think there was a concern raised by both the regulated community and a number of advocates that there needs to be, there's ambiguity here, that there needed to be some type of legal standard. And MDE absolutely agreed. We cannot put a condition on a permit or restrict something under a permit or deny a permit unless we have some specific standard on which to do that. And our focus here for environmental justice has been, let's look at the health of the surrounding community and then determine if there would be a substantial impact on that health by that permit. And that would be our ground floor. Now, substantial is a legal term. It's a little less than, say, significant, but we would further develop criteria for this and regulations with that stakeholder group, which I think Kristen will get in a moment be explaining.
Thank you.
Okay. Delegate Taras, did you still have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, and I meant to just pull the bill up, but I thought the whole point was to have something measurable, unless I'm missing something, but to have something measurable. And that's why this bill puts in the 75%. This seems like we're going back to subjective because they need to both find 75% and that it would have it would have a substantial impact.
From my understanding, the 75th percentile is the trigger for the actual environmental justice evaluation. So when an application has a score above the 75th percentile, that's what triggers this additional evaluation.
Okay. So this is, okay, so there wasn't a standard before for when they could limit?
You mean a numeric standard, quantifiable standard?
Well, any standard, like this looks like it's. I guess I'm confused about what the blue section there is adding.
They would have, so the language that came in last week didn't have, it wasn't this specific. It just said on the findings of an evaluation, the department may. This is adding, additional condition where the department must make a determination that the permit would have a substantial impact. That part's the new language. Before
what
it was
is
just
it
based on the
before-
findings.
Oh, okay, before based on those findings, they can. I mean, just my 2 cents, it seems like it's pretty restrictive on the department, but that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, Delegate Foley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just so I understand, Krista, and how this is working, and what I hear you say is, so a permit application comes in, and then MDE doesn't evaluate, wrong word. MDE looks at it. If it falls in the 75% or below the 75%, then that triggers this evaluation. Is that correct?
If it's above the 75th percentile.
I'm sorry, if it's above, I got
Yeah.
it backwards. If it's
Yeah.
above the 75%, it
Yeah.
triggers this evaluation. And then, and so it's like an additional step if it's above the 75%, right? That's basically what it is. And then MDE does, 1 and 2.
Well, not necessarily 1 and 2. They would have the authority based on.
They would have the authority
yeah.
to do 1 and 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions about this section here? All right, Kristen, you want to move on to the next?
So this section is requiring the department to maintain a publicly accessible website, part of a website or application that identifies pending permit applications with specific census tracts. And one of the things I did in the beginning, so this bill, as introduced, applies to certain permits that are subject to that list for public participation. The amendments do update the definition of permit that would exclude general discharge permits for residential or commercial construction, or a general discharge permit to construct an electricity substation. So those two permits are now out. And then the work group language, so sorry, there's this language here on page 7 would authorize the department to charge a reasonable fee to cover the costs associated with implementation of the bill, including the cost to the department to provide technical assistance to permit applicants and residents of relevant census tract as needed to comply with the bill.
Delegate Love?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick question. When this says you can charge a reasonable fee, including to residents of relevant census tracts, if those are determined to be overburdened, we're also charging them a fee?
Is this question for me? I think this was a
Yeah.
question that would be better addressed by the department.
Well, it just, yeah, I mean,
But what does it authorize? I mean, it authorized the department to charge a fee, so it doesn't put a restriction on what that fee could be. And you're right, it does identify the residents of relevant census tracts as needed.
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't phrase that very well. I guess to be a little bit clearer, it seems wrong to me that in a community that is already overburdened, that we would also then charge them a fee to assess permits that might overburden them even more.
So if I can
Could you
respond, Delegate
clarify
Love,
that?
that's the intent of this section is this fee would actually be charged to a permit applicant. So the permit applicant would be paying this fee for us, the department, to provide technical assistance to both them and also because it is, as you said, an overburdened community, residents of the relevant census tract. So they would be covering both the costs. And the extra language here was a concern that this is for us to provide that assistance. It's not for us to go out and hire an outside consultant and do a longitudinal study or anything of that nature on behalf of the residents, but the applicant would be covering basic technical assistance we would be providing to the neighborhood, given their status.
Got it. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I feel better now.
Okay, great. Delegate Foley?
Yeah, for what it's worth, that's the way Les described is the way I read the bill, that I think that reference in this section to the residents in the census tract is just a description of what the work is. It's not about the fee. But anyway, so I'm glad he cleared that up because that was my understanding. My question though, Mr. Chair, is about the census tracts. So this is, and particularly since they're going to be put on the website where the permits are in the census tracts, I just wanted a little bit of information about how that's going to be conveyed. I mean, I don't know if census tracts, how meaningful they are. I mean, is it going to be so that average people are able to understand where these permits are going?
And I guess, Delegate, you're referring to an earlier section that talks about identified pending permit applications with specific census tracts, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Les, can I ask you to help on that?
Sure. So the EJ screening tool, that is the basis for making these determinations. The level of data only goes down to the census tract. So if you go onto our tool, look at the map and call up a community, that's going to be the aggregate score per census tract. So that's why you're seeing those references. We can't go any more granular than that at this point.
But it's going to show communities, right? It's not going to say, this census. I don't think people understand census tracts. So when I go on the website, it's going to tell me which communities based on the census tract data. Is that correct?
Well, it'll highlight the entire census tract. If you type in a specific address on the EJ screening tool, it'll bring up your EJ score for that particular house or address.
Yeah.
And then, but that's kind of the whole area is going to be that for that census tract.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Okay, Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's help me a little bit. I've had a number of people coming here to educate me on EJ. No joke. And so this is a pretty good handle thing. If EJ score means pollution burn exposure, excuse me, pollution burn environmental effects, sensitive population, socioeconomic factors, and then they go through 3 pages for me to explain all the elements, which is cool. When you do this EJ formula, are these factors weighted in any one way so that in some cases in Baltimore City, the EJ score is going to be weighted a little bit to the skew of one of these indicators? If I go to Prince George's, it's going to be weighted a little bit towards that way. If I go to St. Mary's, the skewing goes a little bit different. So is the formula weighted consistently across the state?
My understanding is that the formula itself is weighted consistently across the state. There are some factors that have more weight, such as poverty, or if you have a majority minority community, but that applies statewide. That there's not regional differences in weighting, say that Baltimore City is certain factors weighted differently than St. Mary's County.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, Kristen, could you go back to where we were?
The fee area,
Yeah.
and then do you want me to continue?
Sure.
Well, I gotta turn this off because it keeps popping up. Okay, so moving on, there's a special section added where it is setting up or requiring the department to work with stakeholders in developing the regulations under the bill. And there's a number of issues that the department identifies as where the stakeholder group would be consulting. And so I can read them. I gotta move you guys from my screen to read this. Oh well. So the department must consult with the stakeholders on the following issues: the scope and parameters of the environmental justice evaluation under the bill, the applicability of any fee that's established, the potential types of conditions that could be placed on permits that are subject to the bill, mitigating and aggravating factors that could assist in determining when the department may, again, place a condition on a permit or deny a permit, whether the facility is considered vital public infrastructure, the past history of violations of a facility, and the willingness to address those violations, and how the department can integrate environmental justice considerations into general permits included under the bill during their next permit renewal period.
Yeah, and Kristen and Les, I know we discussed this a little bit last time, but could you explain again how that number 5 will work?
Sure.
I would be more comfortable if Les could explain this part of the bill.
Okay, Les.
So again, the bill is addressing EJ for both non-general permits, which are specific to an individual facility, and we can put specific conditions unique to that facility on that permit. But there is a lot of classes of general permits, and that's like you have one permit for every facility of that type across the state. So for example, a CAFO is subject to a general permit. So every single CAFO in the state is subject to one permit. So you can't individualize that permit for one facility. So this would be working with all of the stakeholders that would be affected, and this would absolutely include the Farm Bureau and the Delmarva Poultry Association, and of course, environmental justice advocates and affected communities, to say, so for that, how can we integrate environmental justice considerations into the general CAFO permit when its next renewal cycle comes up?
Okay. All right. And Les, also just for my information. Can you give us some examples of the number 3? It refers to potential types of conditions that could be placed on permits. Can you give us some possible conditions?
So I think this is somewhat developed by the stakeholder group, but a few general examples could be, for example, if you are discharging water in a certain location, and you're causing flooding, maybe you have to try to get a secondary discharge point or something that could address that issue for the community. Or where you're if there's a flooding or pooling of water issue that could raise a health concern. Another example might be dealing with, say, if it's well, a lot of water issues, but let's say it's a wastewater treatment plant. Well, so you could potentially, for the specific permits, put on like limitations of the discharge, some additional concerns on screening out pollution, and those types of things. And I think some of that would be developed more specifically. I don't want to use general permit examples, so.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions about section 2? I guess Kristen, section 3 is pretty brief. Just one
Yes.
sentence, right?
This is requiring the department to consider methods to improve outreach and notice effectiveness to underserved and overburdened communities regarding informational meetings and public hearings and comment for tentative determinations for permits.
Okay. Now, Guy Andes from BG&E had reached out to me because he had proposed an amendment, which Les, I guess you said wasn't, you didn't, the NDE working group didn't have time to consider it. So I told Guy if he wanted to speak on that, he'd have the chance. So Guy, if you're on the call,
I hope I am.
feel free to
Yes,
jump
sir,
in.
Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to bring it. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this amendment, and I want to thank MDE for working with the stakeholders on our original amendment. However, we are asking for a slight change to that amendment, and that would be found on the reprint page 5 after line 10, where they talk about a general discharge permit to construct an electricity substation. We would like to change that to a general discharge permit for a regulated electric utility to construct critical electrical infrastructure. So the reason behind this is because of the CSNA goals, we in the BGE service territory are going to have to construct or upgrade at least 250 substations that within our footprint. So this covers not only the substations that we have to build, this also would cover the transmission coming in and the distribution network going out. And so that's the reason why we were asking for the change in that.
Yeah, could you repeat the language again?
It'd be a general discharge permit for a regulated electric utility to construct critical electrical infrastructure.
Okay. Delga Love?
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Guy, for bringing that. I understand your concern about, you need to construct these, but this is not saying you can't just construct these. And I'm concerned that that is a big gaping loophole. Mr. Chair, would it be possible to recognize Betsy Nicholas?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, Betsy, if you want to weigh in.
Betsy, you're on mute. Okay, well then she's not going to weigh in. I just have a lot of concerns that they would not be a part of the consideration at all.
If I may,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
What's that? I'm sorry. Oh, is
If
this
I may?
Guy? Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
So on that, this just exempts us from the general discharge permit, which relates to stormwater. If the department determines that there's other factors that contribute to environmental justice concerns, they still have the right to review those permits and make determinations and set conditions on those permits. This just applies to the general discharge permits, which apply to stormwater.
Okay. All right, Guy, one more time. What is your language again? A general discharge permit.
For a regulated electric utility to construct critical electrical infrastructure. I can put that in the chat if you like.
Okay. All right. So what I like to do is we have, what we reviewed so far, the amendments, including MDE's updated amendments. So I'd like to see if anyone wants to make a motion on Guy's amendments to include that in our amendments. And then we'll take a motion on the bill as amended as it is in front of us.
Mr. Chair, I believe Betsy has gotten off mute.
Okay. All right, Betsy.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having computer problems. I just wanted to say that in the stakeholder group, we discussed these before, and I also have concerns about the expansion of the exemption for these facilities. Infrastructure is broad. To me, the first thing that raises is, are we talking about pipelines? But it's not like they have to be like you can't apply for that. It would just go into special consideration. So I think we just need to keep our eyes focused on that. It's not prohibiting them in any way.
Okay. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you. Betsy, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Could you explain a little further?
Sure. That we had, so first of all, I had discussed these amendments with Delegate Boyce. I've been working closely with her on the bill, and she is okay with the amendments as presented by MDE. So we did not have an opportunity to discuss this amendment that's being put forward now, but to me, it sounds like it's a lot broader than the limitation that we had discussed in the stakeholder group and felt comfortable putting forward here. It would exempt all of these electrical infrastructure projects from an environmental justice consideration when it would otherwise have been warranted. So that to me seems really broad in terms of its scope of an exemption from environmental justice considerations.
Okay, Delegate Love.
I'd like to move unfavorable on that amendment.
Second.
Okay. Was there a second on that?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the unfavorable on Guy's proposed language, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Todd,
Okay, was that
I
Delegate Morgan?
support-
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. The unfavorable passes. So then, would someone like to make a motion on the amendments as presented in the bill? Oh, Delegate Love, you have a question?
Move the amendments as presented in the bill.
Okay, second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor of the amendments, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, bill as amended. I'll move it. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion or questions about the bill as amended? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Wait,
Aye.
sorry, Mr. Chair.
Oh, Delegate Ruth, sorry, missed your hand. Okay.
No, I was trying to get it up. I couldn't click the button quick enough. I'm very sorry. Thank you, Mr.
Oh, it's
Chair.
all right.
So I had some conversations about this bill. First of all, I want to thank Delegate Boyce for putting forth this important bill and this environmental justice bill. And I am going to vote to support it with the amendments as put forward. But I did just want to be on the record as being disappointed that we're not adding anything for air quality to this bill. I think air quality is an important environmental justice consideration, and that there isn't even really any kind of on-ramp to get there in the future. And just hope down the line we can add that as well. But I will be supporting this bill. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Delegate Ruth. Delegate Tarasa.
I just would like to say same.
Okay. All right. So the bill as amended, it's been moved, seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, all right, bill passes as amended. Thank you. I know a lot of work went into this, so thank you to everyone who helped out. Okay. House Bill 990. Last week, what we did was we looked at amendment language which hadn't been sent to the amendments office. So I'll just say, and Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, but as it came back from the amendment office, the language that's at the end of the bill was initially proposed as uncodified, but because there's no date by which it expires, it has to be codified. So, but otherwise the substance is the same as what was discussed before. Kristen, any corrections to what I said?
You got it.
Okay, any questions about the bill or the amendments?
Can I move the amendments?
Sure. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bill as amended.
If I
Second.
may, Mr. Chair, these amendments, did that satisfy the concrete people?
Yes. Is there anyone on the call from this cement industry who can confirm that? Neil, yes. Could I ask you to, Neil and John, you want to weigh in on this?
I'll defer to John on any substance, but I just want to say, we're grateful that Delegate Stein gave us the opportunity to work with the stakeholders on these amendments, and Heidelberg Materials is comfortable. So thank you.
Okay. John?
Sure. Delegate Otto, this is John Favazza on behalf of Wholesome Cement. Thank you for your question. And yes, we are comfortable with these amendments. And thanks again to the sponsor and to the advocates for the bill for working with us on the language. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is this the only manufacturer it affects? Is this cement people, or what else would this cover?
Well, no. So what this bill does is it says that cement manufacturers are, MDE has the authority to do climate change, greenhouse gas emission related regulations of cement manufacturers, subject to the considerations in at the end of the bill now. Any other existing manufacturer who's been in the state who was in the state as of end of 2023 can only be regulated if the regulation would not increase their costs beyond 2023 costs, or requirement to reduce their emissions below 2023. Any new manufacturers that happen to move into the state would be subject to to regulation by the MDE without that type of restriction I just mentioned. It's kind of a long answer to your question, Delegate Otto.
I think you did a good job answering it. It satisfies a lot of my concerns, but I'm just scared there's something that I'm not seeing.
Okay. All right. Well, any other questions or discussion about the bill? Let's see. Let me get, someone have their hand up? Okay. Okay. Well, I forget if we had moved this as amended, so we'll start from there. I know we adopted the amendments.
Move the bill as
The bill
amended.
is amended. I'm sorry?
I think you had a motion on the bill as amended.
Okay. Is there a
Second.
second? Okay. All those in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, bill passes as amended. Thank you. Okay, next is House Bill 1147. discussed this last week, talked about adding some language on the definition. So Kristen, could you explain to us the new proposed changes?
Are they on your screen?
Yes.
Is the bill reprint? Okay, good. So at the last meeting, there was discussion around, whether or not the PFAS, well, just the fact that the definition in the bill was not consistent with current law. So we added language. I worked with the sponsor on amendment language. And so there on page 2, line 4, we updated that term to reference PFAS chemicals and defined it in a manner that's consistent under current law. So it would mean a class of fluorinated organic chemicals that contain at least one fully fluorinated carbon atom. And then references to PFAS in the bill is now updated to PFAS chemicals.
Delegate Guyton, you've got your hand up. Why don't you jump in?
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to say that Kristen is brilliant, efficient, and fabulous. And that is, I mean, she worked with me and then some conversations back and forth. And I just want to say thank you because she's really, really fabulous. That's it. And I mean, I'm happy with the changes in the bill. Kristen, do you have the other amendment as well?
Yes, I got to scroll down just a little bit
We
more.
have 2 amendments and I think we came to a nice middle ground.
Okay. So Kristen, you just covered the definition of PFAS chemical. Well, you added chemicals and the definition of PFAS chemicals. Okay.
Yeah, and so language is being added here that would, the prohibition applies to playground surfacing materials that contain more than 90 parts per million of lead. And then the new language would reference, would place a prohibition on playground surfacing materials that contain a component, product, material, or substance to which PFAS chemicals were previously intentionally added in the formation of that component, or the continued presence of the PFAS chemicals was desired in the component to provide a specific characteristic. And this is a similar language what we'll see under current law. It's a little bit different. It needed to be massaged because the PFAS chemicals aren't being intentionally added to playground surfacing materials, but rather there could be component products in the playground surfacing materials like tires where there was previous deliberate addition of these chemicals.
Okay, and then also, you're saying the language in the second part of that sentence also comes from existing law?
Yeah, the continued presence of the chemicals was desired in the component to provide a specific characteristic. That is modeled after language in the George Walter Taylor Act.
Okay. Delegate Guyton, did you want to comment on that?
I'll move forward on, move favorable on the amendments.
Okay. All right. Hold that thought, as I think there might have been another hand up. Maybe they went down, but does anyone else have questions about the amendments?
My hand was up, Mr. Chair, to move the amendments.
Okay, great. All right. So they were moved and seconded. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Aye.
Okay. Bill as amended. I'll move it. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the bill as amended say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, bill as amended passes. Thank you. Thank you, Delegate Guyton, for all your work on this.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, I'm sorry, Delegate Ruth.
Thank you. Did you see Delegate Otto had his hand up in the opposition? I didn't know.
Oh, no, I did not. I'm sorry. Okay, Delegate Otto, duly noted. Okay. All right, so we are done with tonight's agenda. And so we are, as I said at the outset, we are going to meet tomorrow afternoon, probably at 4:30. I'll announce the specific time. I guess on the floor tomorrow. And I can tell you in terms of I mean, we'll send out the agenda for tomorrow's meeting tomorrow morning. I can tell you now that we're going to be, oh, I don't have the bill numbers. We're going to start with a review. Delegate Tarasa, your stream restoration bill. Do you know the number off the top of your head?
I can get it.
1284.
1284.
1284. Okay. Start with review of House Bill 1284. Then we're going to move to Delegate Love. Is that 1165 your watershed restoration bill?
Yes.
Okay. So then after we review 1284, we'll go back to House Bill 1165, which we covered, I think about roughly half of it last time. So we'll, finish our review of House Bill 1165, and there will probably be one or two other bills on the agenda as well. Obviously we'll send the numbers out in the email tomorrow, including Delegate Allen's bill on dams. Potentially, let's see, my bill, which is House Bill. Hold on one second. Clean Water Commerce Act. Well, anyway, it'll be on you'll see if it's on the list when we send it out tomorrow. But that's the the first three are definitely going to be on the agenda, maybe the fourth. So we will be back together tomorrow. Any parting words, Delegate Ruth?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Love, have there been changes since we reviewed it previously?
There have been, yes.
Would it be possible to get a reprint or something on those changes before?
We don't
Kristen?
have the amendments ready yet, but once we have them, I can send them out.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, very good. Anything else? All right. Have a good evening, everyone.